Here, had a guy not pay attention to the light and zip across Sibley and get hit 30 some miles an hour. Kind of wrecked the golf cart. They bought it.
Ready to get started. Jeff, got any announcements?
We
before
do.
Get started?
We do. Mr. Todd Dickman.
In case you didn't notice coming in, the Summerfest is coming this weekend, so we'll be starting up on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
What time does it start Thursday, Todd?
Starts at 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay. All right.
Is that it?
Nope, got one more. City Clerk, Shane Harrison.
Hi, as council knows, we consolidated precincts for this upcoming August election. So tomorrow, I'm actually putting voter ID cards in the mail for those residents that are affected by the consolidation. So just be on the lookout for that. If anybody has any questions, they can contact the clerk's office.
Thank you, Shane.
All right, Mayor, that is
Is it?
all I have. Yep.
And I have none. So 2-1, discuss the creation of the ad hoc Blue Ribbon Adofina Contamination Remediation Action Committee. Jeff?
So, Your Honor, this was put on the agenda. Appointments were made back in December of 2023, and now some of the council has requested to consider adopting this attached resolution, which further defines the committee's purpose, composition, and structure. So I think what this is the last step to formalize the committee. And so in front of you is a resolution that was written to formalize the committee.
Okay. So the committee has met and they came up with this resolution, or was this developed by you, Randy?
Yeah, I don't know what the committee has done, if anything, thus far.
Okay.
So we did meet, and I believe, well, a few things. We're actually going to be changing the name. One second.
When did you guys meet, Dave?
God.
June 2nd.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so as of right now, the scope of the committee will be, since there are already a few other downriver committees that are making efforts towards the remediation and development of the Arkema property, including the 5 waterfront communities, DTE project, DCC Brownfield Committee, City Review Committee Development, and the Review City Council. The committee came to a consensus not to limit the focus to only Arkema Brownfield, but to include any brownfield in the city. So with that decision, we're asking the committee the committee decided that a more purposeful name would be the Review Brownfields Committee. All council members voted in favor of expanding the scope to all brownfields in Riverview and of the committee rename. So this was Brian, myself, and Rita. The purpose will be working with the local, county, state, and federal legislators to support the efforts of remediating and/or developing any brownfield in the city of Riverview. We'll be working with the government agencies such as the EPA, Eagle, to support efforts of remediating any brownfield in the city of Riverview. We'll be addressing residents' concerns about brownfields, working to find solutions and keeping residents informed of the progress. And we'll be finding opportunities for brownfield remediation or redevelopment by working with like-minded groups, legislatures, and other council members from the surrounding committees. As of right now, I'm sorry?
Communities.
I'm sorry, I said, yes, communities. As of right now, the 3 council members is myself, Brian Webb, Rita, and Dave Robbins will serve as an alternate, along with the 2 residents who applied.
Once they're ratified.
Once they're ratified, and that would be Chuck and Bruce. We'll be meeting once per quarter and/or as needed. So,
Good job, Sharon.
Okay. I do have any questions? I just have one, and it's, I don't know if it's be a Randy or you. The committee was actually formed to laser focus on Arkema. We already have a brownfield authority that is focuses on other brownfields within the city. So would this be a duplication, or is there's now, I don't know if it's a conflict or competition between 2 similar committees?
I think, from what I'm hearing, and I'd ask that maybe, Dave, you would send that to to Jeff so that we can put it into the format of a resolution for the next council meeting. But from what I believe is happening, this is focused on the environmental issues of any brownfield within Riverview, whereas the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has existed for a long time here and is focused on raising money and looking for developers and that sort of stuff, and working with the Brownfield Consortium at the DCC. So I don't think, unless we look at the language, I don't think there's overlap, but that's one of the things we want to make sure isn't happening.
Yeah, that's fine, we can look at that.
Yeah.
Well, and that, because, well, from what I remember is, obviously, all this is all coming as a result of the last campaign, where current council people at that time were accused of doing nothing for 18 years. So the reason was you formed this Arkema committee is maybe you weren't as laser focused, so the formation of the committee was to make sure that the Arkema property got cleaned up. So, and I don't see the actual cleanup in any of this.
Point, if I may.
Go right ahead.
I don't think anybody made the statements or claims that prior council did nothing.
Oh, I think they absolutely did, Brian.
Well, I did
You may
not-
not have been one of them, but it's been said.
Okay, well, I'll speak for myself then. My contentions were that efforts were made, but then they ceased at some point. And questions were asked, why or when did we cease having conversations with our legislators to push the efforts of continuing with the remediation of Arkema and then subsequently the redevelopment? That was why I got involved, and that was my statements during my campaign.
Those discussions never ceased, they just didn't happen as often. So, and, you know, I really.
Well, it was
that's
on
just me.
your own statement that it had been quite some time, so however long that
Quite
quite
some
some time is.
Absolutely. So we were criticized heavily for, the only thing we ever did was call Debbie Nagle. So I was really looking for here is some specific action items that the committee would do, other
Will be
than the
coming
stuff
once
we've
the
done in the
committee's
past.
completely formed. Right now, this was just the organization.
So the committee was formed in December of last year, and you met once since then? So we got
It's not
this
like we-
the whole presentation was there's the urgency to get something done, and there's been nothing done to this
Okay,
point.
so that,
Well, that's not true.
well, hold on, I don't mean to interrupt, gentlemen, but
Go ahead.
saying that nothing's been done, you have no idea how many phone calls I've made.
Absolutely.
But
No,
a few weeks
I'm
ago,
not
I
saying
just proposed and passed a motion to continue working on this. So to say nothing's being done is ridiculous.
Well, and to be
It's-
honest, Dave, you were one of them that says nothing's been
You're
done.
right, you're right.
Nothing's been done. And you
And I
have no
believe-
idea how many phone calls I've made, or Dean Workman's made, or all of us have made
So
for years.
instead of
So-
talking over one another and this just devolving into chaos,
Uh-huh.
my first week on the committee, I reached out to everybody, did I not? Asking for any information on Arkema. That has not ceased. It's not going to cease. I'm still in contact with the EPA, still in contact with other legislatures, and yes, we're going to be asking you to go to Debbie Dingle and everybody else. But to say no action has happened is false. We're still working on it, we're still gonna work on it.
The same comments were made during the campaign were also false.
Okay, but this council always says, we need to stop looking at the past, let's move forward.
Right, and I agree.
But
And I-
what you're doing right now is saying, during the last election, these comments were made. Okay, those comments were made. We're moving forward, I understand. If you want us to change the scope, we can talk about that. But the very first thing I read in the scope is that we're trying to make efforts towards the remediation and redevelopment of the Arkema property. Now, Jeff, I've already sent it to you. So, I mean, we
No,
can
we're here to
do
support
this, or we
that.
can just
We-
go into chaos, but we are working on this. You know,
And we're here to help you be successful in that.
I appreciate it.
So the only point of having it focused on Arkema is because your contention is that others have been saying previously, council made no efforts.
I think I'm the one that made the motion.
I
In
believe
fact,
you were.
I'm pretty sure. My concern was residents standing up, talking about how everybody on the east side of Fort Street are being poisoned. I want to see some results from that. Now, I don't want to get into your argument or your argument. I want some results.
Yeah.
I live on the east side of Ford Street. I want some results. I don't want talking. I don't want people going, you did this, you didn't do this. I'm tired. Give me some results. I want to be able to look at the residents and say, whether you get it from the EPA, I don't care who you get it from, as long as it's a proper study that tells me that my neighbors aren't being polluted. That's all I want.
And that's what we're still
Because
working
I don't
on.
know if these residents were experts that stood up there saying everyone's dying of cancer or not.
Yeah.
But it made some of my neighbors a little nervous.
Yeah.
I want to be able to answer them.
And
So
that's why we work
let's
together
quit
on the motion,
arguing,
you
let's
know?
get going, let's get
What I'm
some
hearing is a
results.
separate committee, though, based upon your motion for Dave's motion.
Well, that's why I did Arkema, because that was the focus. Everybody over there is
So is that-
dying now.
Okay, but is then that not a separate issue than the Blue Ribbon Committee that was originally
That's why it was the
appointed?
Blue Ribbon Committee, because
Well, we
everybody
asked for the
is
scope
standing
of
up.
what the committee is supposed to be about, and there was none given. And I have the email asking for your input on that, and none was given. So we, as a committee, decided that instead of focusing solely on the Arkema, our efforts would be better on working with our legislators, the environmental agencies, to get exactly what Dave's motion was, the testing and some results. It may take longer than years. I know this was limited to 1 year.
I would rather you focus on one issue and get it done than multiple issues and do
Well, that's
nothing.
what your opinion is, so it
That's-
has to be the
that's my
opinion of the
opinion.
council, correct?
May I chime in?
Go right ahead, Rita.
I just wanted to say I brought that point up as well when we talked about if we would add more brownfields or just keep it on one. And the thought process that we all went through was there's not enough action happening on Arkema. As much as everyone's putting in and the community's calling and everyone's doing things, not a lot is coming back to us information-wise. So we're feeling that if we have the time and we have the committee, we might as well see if we can also include some other properties in it as well. So that was kind of the thought process
And it
in
was
the
also to
conversation.
address possibly the DTE property with the coal of fly ash that you guys had both brought up in an
Yeah.
email. So, I mean, even though it's not a Riverview property, it still affects Riverview residents.
I have
We're gonna
no
be facing
problem with it.
PFAS in the upcoming.
Give me an
time.
answer
There
from
may
my
be other
neighbors.
brownfields in the city.
You can put on whoever you want. Get me an answer from my neighbors, because I'll be asking.
Absolutely.
Can I ask why it was limited to 1 year?
That's
Well,
a
I
good
figured by
question.
that time, someone would have some answers for us
You
on
always say
Arkema.
that government works at a snail's pace, so
Well, that's
I don't
not what
believe
you
that we
people
can-
were telling us.
I
You
know.
people were telling us you're gonna get in and you're gonna
No,
get
that's
it.
your perception of what was being said.
Hey, can I,
So I'm tired of this.
That was
Give me-
good.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do this.
Perception.
Let's do this,
That
Brian.
is your perception.
Let's do this. Let's quit talking about it. Get me some answers.
Okay.
How's that?
Why don't you be involved instead of being contentious and saying that you?
Because
as,
I was
As new
involved.
committee members and new
Listen,
to the city
listen,
council are,
don't make this personal. Give me some answers.
it is personal, Dean, because you don't want to be involved and you're pointing your
I
finger.
was involved.
In the-
Let
in the
me
current
just say
effort
that,
to
John,
pass
let me
that.
just say this. Okay, we're gonna move forward, and the committee's gonna go on the focus. But we can't let it go, Brian, because of the intensity of, for so many months, the accusation was we did absolutely nothing. So let's just, we'll drop that conversation and we'll move forward. Now, who's gonna be involved is, because since I've done nothing for 18 years, what do I have to give you? You know, we've had tons of committees and we've had tons of meetings, but because you weren't aware of them, doesn't mean they didn't exist.
Right.
And so.
So when we discussed this point, you
And
said
and
you
we will provide information to you when we can, but you guys have, you'll be the fresh eyes. You can look at this age-old problem with new eyes, and hopefully you can get something done that we couldn't. So if you're that much better, then we're here to support you. But
See, that's.
we don't want you
So
to make
the attitude that I'm
mistake.
getting is, you know,
So,
it's
Brian,
like
I don't
us
mean to
against
interrupt.
them, like we're better than you.
No,
Right?
No,
So-
it's not an attitude.
It is.
We're just dealing
And
with
it- and it's-
reality.
And it's the tone of the emails as well.
So hold on, can I just,
Me and you have very little emails. there.
Can I
No,
just-
this was
David,
Dean's email.
David, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, from my understanding from this whole process, it's been, that this was a hot button issue for many, many years, never quite died off, but legislators have changed, things have changed. So, because it came around full circle again, and to be quite honest, I'm over the whole this and that, and you and he and she and whatever. the main takeaway I have is it was being done. I believe former Councilman Elmer Trombley actually brought it up, saying he went like as far to Washington as you could possibly have taken this. That was some time ago, so it's being revisited. We all know that a lot of people are taking this types of things a lot more serious, and the efforts that may have stalled out in the past maybe can gain some steam now. So I don't want this to be a headache for anybody. I think if people are willing to champion it, we can get some answers, and it's gonna take just deep breaths and like get it done, you know?
Yeah,
and because it's just we're all here. We all want to just move forward, and let's just do that. And it's just like our bench has changed, so has Washington, so has the state. So you'll probably get different results today than you would 20 years ago.
And that's absolutely correct.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And
I think because obviously Councilman Workman and I will provide support where we can. And I think we can work together. But I really think that if you guys, again, you're the fresh eyes, maybe you do what we did, maybe people will listen now where they haven't in the past. And, more power to you.
So here's something I want to point out. And Dean and I just recently started talking. I thanked him for his help with my motion. But if you please look at number 3 on the resolution. The committee is encouraged to examine previous studies and endeavors undertaken by prior councils and managers, along with those of the state and federal governments, including EGLE, EPA, and other agencies, and federal elected officials, so as to avoid redundant efforts. If we're not talking, we're wasting our time. I understand you might be upset over things that were said during the election, but all 7 of us are here now. So I would like to be able to call you and say, who did you talk to?
You're more than welcome to call me.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is the shit that happened, the stuff that happens, that's $1, right? The stuff that happens in here, I'm tired of the arguing. And we can play like, oh, there's no tone on the emails and there's this and that. The fact is, all 7 of us are here to work together. You might not like me, I don't care. It's not an issue. All of us can work together. If you're upset over something I said during the election, we can have a private conversation and move forward.
The good of the city, bottom line.
But even in this resolution, it's saying we need to work together. I need to know what you guys did in the past that didn't work. If we can come up with something that does, great. If it doesn't, we'll figure out another way. But the whole point is to get this area fixed, period. Like Dean said, he wants to know what is in his area. The whole point of that motion was to get that area tested. If they find nothing, great. Dean can tell his neighbors, you know what, there's absolutely nothing, and there was, that dickhead Councilman Prey scared everybody for no reason. Or, God forbid, we find something. And if we do, then we remediate it. But either way, we gotta start moving forward. Worrying about the language of the committee it's a waste of time. I don't wanna sit here and go back and forth over this. And I'll put $3 in the jar.
Yeah, well, I think we agree that we do need to work together. We get that. And again, with the whole that we've done nothing in the past, and they said I'm going to drop that now. We are going to move forward. We'll provide assistance where we can, but we need you guys to lead the way.
Yeah. And you can ask Dean. I called him that night after that motion and said, hey, I appreciate you, supporting the motion and thank you for all your help on it. I'm not above working with anybody. I don't care if somebody doesn't like me. I don't care if I don't like them. I want to work together to get the problem solved.
Right.
Hate me in 4 years,
I myself
Go
have, I don't care what happened during the election, what you guys want to fight about here, but what I will tell you is that there's a lot of stuff that goes on here that's personal, and it's just not a personal job. we're here elected by the people to do the best thing for the people. If they want to volunteer their time
Absolutely.
and make their committee, God bless you, because do what you got to do, but I think the pettiness is just ridiculous.
Well, let us
So
move
then-
forward and make the committee and work with Randy to write the resolution. Dave was elected the chair, so.
Second, yeah, on that.
Well, yeah. And so we do have what we feel the scope and the current members from city council. Of course, we have 2 residents at large that have already volunteered. We'll have to ratify them. Dave's going to be asking to have that in the next council
Yeah.
meeting, correct?
Yeah, I'll send that to you.
So I don't see any problems there. And, you know, once we have all members together and the resolution, you know, maybe even for the next meeting as well, we can move forward. And in that scope will contain the Arkema property and the testing that Dean and David worked on, but it may include other parts of the city where we work with our legislators to push our agenda and our initiative. And that's why, Andy, you're going to play a key role. I mean, you're our interface to the regional leadership. And, you know, I know you have those relationships, and we're going to need you to build on that and reach out when we have need.
Mhm. And I'll do that. But there was a question about the date, why is there such a short time frame, Randy? Or can we set?
You can set whatever you want. All I wanted to do was get something in front of you to, you guys to
started.
react to, and you are, thank you. No, it's an ad hoc committee, and historically, what we try and do with a few exceptions, we try and have an end date to the committee, and it can always be extended and renewed. I just threw that in, I mean, it can be whatever you want.
So what is your preference? Do the 1 year and then they extend it, or go for a 2-year time frame?
I would say bare minimum 2 years, because getting answers back from the EPA has not been easy.
Yeah, and with the expanded scope being more than just Arkema,
Yeah.
there's
We
a
can do
lot.
other things,
There's a
right?
lot
We don't
to
have
do,
to
so.
wait, just.
Well, see, that's part, and Rita already mentioned this, that's part of what it goes to, is that we're making phone calls and we're looking for action, and you're getting a phone call, for every 4 or 5 phone calls I'm waiting, you know, I'm getting a call 2 weeks later. And it just seems like if we're gonna be working, we might as well be working as much as we can. You think things are moving slow now, it's like, I'd like to, in 4 years, I want to be able to leave the office saying, you know what, at least I accomplished this and this and this. And at least I had an impact on this, like I'm sure every single person in this, that's sitting here wants to do. You know? He said before, he's not, I don't blame him.
Do you want to make it,
In 4 years, I want to just be able to say, you know what, I'm done.
do you want to make it 3 years, 2 years? Or should we just,
We're new to forming committees,
Yeah.
obviously, so we're looking for a recommendation, I guess.
If you do 2, you can always extend it, correct?
yeah, exactly. Now, the resolution called for up to 4 residents. Do you want to cap it at 2, or do you want to go up to 4? So that others could, do you have an opinion on that?
We can go up to 4.
Yeah, I believe so.
The more people, the better.
Okay.
I mean, to a certain
Sometimes,
extent.
yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, but if you leave it up to 4, if you find somebody that's interested and that they can join.
Yeah.
But it won't stop you from making decisions if you just have the 2.
Yeah, and again, like any other committee, it's just, let's say we even get 4, it's not like we can't have the residents come and get involved, so.
And real quick, the EPA and Eagle did say at that town hall, 2025, right? There's nothing until 2025. Is that?
Well, that was the point I was gonna make, through
Is
the,
accurate?
yeah,
They aren't
through
even.
the Economic
the
Development
plan is
Assistance
going.
Project, they're already working on this, and we've, you know, Mayor and several others attend the meetings. And they have, you know, the Upper Trenton Channel dredging project that they're still waiting on BASF to finish
Yeah.
their piece so that they can begin that. And one of the, you know, obstacles that we have right now is that the EPA and Eagle are saying that the 3 pieces of Arkema are one contingent property, and that because they're going to be using the UTC, or the east side for the UTC dredging, that we can't do any development or remediation on the west of the West Bryan Field. So it was left at that last meeting, after they presented this beautiful marina, you know, over on the Wyandotte side, and some industrial development, et cetera, is that, okay, what's the next steps? Well, have you talked to the property owners? And they said, well, we're not going to talk to the property owners until we have agreement from Eagle and EPA that we can use the west of the West Bryan Field. So that's where it was left at the last Economic Development Assistance Project update. And then, of course, you know, they had the public input a few weeks back over at the Conservancy. So there is efforts being made towards moving towards the remediation as well as the development. So we, as a community, need, and I talked to Brian Kelly from the EPA Region 5, is to put together a plan of what we would like to see developed on that property. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's a wish list of what type of developments we would like to see, and go so far as maybe even giving it a name and put that together so that when a developer does come, like Mr. Skirtle had, you know, a developer that was previously interested in industrial development, then we can present what the community's idea is, and obviously you have to work with Arkema and, you know, all the other cogs in the wheel, but having a plan, and that's one of the important parts that this project DCC is doing. It's actually putting a plan into a book, and, you know, once we get the pieces finished, then they're gonna start marketing that property. With
Just
Arkema.
Domino's right now.
Well, I mean, Arkema still has to agree. That's the thing
That's
that's the bone in my head is, why is nobody approaching Arkema? And I understand that because, until
They don't want to be contacted.
maybe you
until
have
there's
some
something
history,
ready.
or you guys have some history of why the city is not actively engaging Arkema to find out if they're interested.
We have.
I'm sure you have, but I'm
Yeah.
saying,
And Mr. Skirdo has probably more than interactions than I have, but we can share that with you.
okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
So now that we have legislators on board and some funding, is it still, to your understanding, hesitating?
I'm sure it
Or
is.
there isn't going to be another approach to Arkema until a decision's made that we could use the West Bryanfield property? Because that's the obstacle right now. I mean, we have a plan, there's funding, but because of the UTC project, it's held up.
Maybe we can have that conversation real soon,
Okay.
like 9 o'clock.
That's what we were envisioning as a committee. We'd be engaging with our legislators to find out what we can do to help move that forward.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I just
Yeah.
would like to mention that the draft of that letter to the EPA and Eagle into the legislatures it's done, so I just have to
Thank you.
tweak something, I think, and then it'll be ready to go on city letterhead, and I'll copy all of you when it goes
Okay.
out.
Thank you.
I do have a name at the EPA to send it to, but I don't have the Eagle person yet. I'm waiting on the Eagle person, but the letter's ready to go.
Thank you, Jeff.
You good?
It is done, it's just a little tweak.
Okay, so we'll have a resolution for the next council meeting?
We hope.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that subject?
No, I did send that to you, Jeff. It should be
Okay.
an email. If it's not, just hit me up.
Yep, okay.
Okay, 2.2, review the 224 fee schedule.
Okay,
Jeff.
so it's 2-2. So we took a really good look at the fee schedule, and there was a lot of changes made in there. We found that some of the fees were significantly low, some of them were still below average. And what we wanted to do was to get our fees right in the middle with the surrounding communities. So we benchmarked the Southgate, Trenton, and Wyandottes. And what we found in previous years that our fees weren't covering our costs. And the general fund was covering some of those costs, and with the general fund covering those costs, that means all the taxpayers were paying for people to get inspections for their pools and inspections for different scheduled items. So worked hard with the community development and building department, and we kind of came to a more reasonable way of determining fees, and so they had a big part of it. And then we looked at all the fees. I asked all the directors in their areas to look at the fees to make sure they were reasonable based on other communities, and so we took and changed all the fees. Now, some of the fees change every year, right? Like the golf fees and the landfill fees, and but there was a lot of fees that weren't touched for a number of years. So we kind of increased the fee revenue and kind of made the fees kind of stand on their own, so that,
I love the increased revenue sentence.
yeah, so it was kind of a way that, hey, look, you gotta pay for this, and yet, you know, we may have charged, for an example, for one fee to go out and do an inspection, but we didn't cover the second visit to pass them in the final inspection. So this was a way to do it, and again, it was in your budget book, so this fee schedule is still reflective in that budget book that you passed. So now it's just following the budget for next year. So that's
Sounds
kind of
good.
the background in it.
Just ask a
Go
question.
ahead.
The fees, are they, competitive with neighboring cities? What did you use the base on?
That was the benchmark, competitive Southgate, Wyandotte, Trenton, Brownstown, Woodhaven, and it's kind of funny because I think Southgate's going to use our structure. At least that's it's kind of mentioned, that some of Southgate's going to use the structure we came up with, because they feel it's a better way. And I think it, and it's nothing to, this is one of those things, until you look at it, does it really make a lot of sense until you really study it. And if you don't, then, you leave it on the table, so. And it's not fair for all the taxpayers to pay for people that are truly doing, their project, or, upgrading or updating or what have you, so.
Did these increases come in the median of these other cities? Or
Yeah, that's about where they were. They were right in the middle. Yeah, roughly in the middle. There's some a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, so. But in all, it was in the middle.
But at least all of them will at least cover our costs now for the
Correct.
service that's provided.
Correct.
Will it create any additional revenue?
Yes, it will.
Any estimate?
Depends on how much.
It depends on how many permits are pulled and the whole bit. I think we budget a few $100,000 extra. So,
Did you
Dollar
win?
fine.
I didn't win.
Okay.
so, and I want to thank all the department heads for putting this all together. And
This looks like
also,
it was pretty intense.
yeah, and Shane, our city clerk, kind of maintains the schedule, so she scrubbed it over and over again and had lots of questions for a lot of the department heads and me to make sure that we get it right, so. And the nice thing is, if there's something we missed or something that we didn't get right, we can always amend, right? I mean, we just bring it back and say, you know what, guys, we overlooked this, or we're overzealous here, but not here, or whatever, and we can always amend. That's the nice thing about a fee schedule, you can amend.
So does this come before us to vote on, or, is this already?
Yes, you have to vote on it. I mean, the total was put into the budget already, but
Yeah.
this is to follow.
I guess the follow-up question be is when, and after that, when would the fees go in?
7/1 is when it's always, starts on the new budget year,
Okay,
July 1st.
okay, so we'll see this on the next agenda?
Yes. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to monitor these to see what it really looks like. This isn't, you want it done, it's, okay, let's keep running track of these fees to see how they're tracking. Because it is budgeted, and we want to make sure that we are getting to what we estimated, right? I mean, you can't have this static way of looking at everything, like you just wait till the end of the year and you go, oh, heck, I should have adjusted this or adjusted that. We've got to look at this quarter by quarter basis, so I think there's been a lot more attention to detail on a quarterly basis here in the city than it's been in a while, so, which I think is important for all departments.
When was the
What
last-
else?
Just out of curiosity for my own, when was the last time this fee schedule was really looked at?
Well, that's a great question, and like I said, for like golf and landfill and, things that.
Yeah, those are constant.
Yeah. But I don't know, yes, Shane?
If you look on the very front, there's an effective date, and that was the date, so each sheet, you'll notice, has the effective date in the description. That was the date of the resolution that I found for those updated fees.
Oh, okay, I see, thank you.
So a couple of years ago at least.
Yeah, so 2022, the vast
That
majority.
was a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, very good.
That was the last time, I apologize, that was the last time it was brought through council. So some of these fees may have been the same for the past 10 years, but that was the last time it was brought before council and you looked at the fees. I can't tell you what ones have changed.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have on that one.
2-3, review memorandum of understanding from Carlisle Workman and Associates. Jeff?
Okay, Your Honor and Council, this was our community
Yeah,
development.
guys, come on.
Yeah, come on up. We looked at rates.
I think Jason should be
So back in 2012, that's how long we're going to go back, there was a new agreement with Carlisle Workmen, and every single year, they asked for an increase, and it was never pushed forward, to bring to council for an increase. Couple reasons. I think one was they were concerned, or the administration was concerned about a bigger rate, how would they afford it? And so anyhow, there was an absorbent amount of difference between 2012 and 2024. I said, well, that's not going to work. There's no way that the city can afford that. And so they mildly increased it, but we also increased the rates of some of these fees, so the delta or the difference is less than it was last year, with paying a little bit more for the services and collected still the fees. So we didn't give them all the fees back. They only took a small percentage of the fee and income. So as Councilman Webb asked, are we going to get more in fees? Absolutely. But we are going to pay a little bit more in costs, but not, they discounted it, and then they said, at this rate, it'll be an annual 3% after this rate. I mean, if you think 12 years at 3% or 4%. And there were some years in there where Councilman Workman was city manager, where it was, it fell off the cliff, so they wouldn't expect an increase in those years when it was just the city was just trying to survive. But anyhow, so what I did was, I said, okay, instead of doing this whole big thing, let's do a memorandum of understanding. Let's chart it for 3 months, and let's see. Let's see if the proof is in the pudding. And so we have controls put in place that we're going to track revenue and track expense.
3 or 6?
I thought it was
It's written for 120 days.
That's what I'm.
4 months, I'm sorry, 4 months. 4 months, 120 days. So that would be July, up forward, August, November. And so we're going to see. And then I'll report back to say, yes, it's working, or no, it's not, and we got to figure out something else. But the budget that was put in the budget book includes the increase in fees and the increase in the rate. So we put a placeholder in there, so we budget the general fund with these additional fees and additional costs, but. Mike, would you Dave, like to say anything different? Do you think, did I do it justice, or?
Yeah, I think you did it justice. We're just trying to find a balancing point. We have discounted rates, like you said, we try to make it work for the city. We've been proud being here. We feel like we're one of the departments here. We got plenty of knowledge. We feel we get the trust of everybody. We're loyal as can be. And so we would like to continue. And I think 4 months is extremely reasonable to try it out. At the end of 4 months, if something's not working, like you said, we'll come back to you and see what can make it work.
I think you summarized the history very well. Our firm did come back to the previous administration prior to Mr. Dobek, I think 4 different times. And it's in the memorandum. It kind of, we attempted to outline a very reasonable summary representing all sides. If there had been 3.5% increases annually from where it started in 2012, I think, or 9, it would be what it is today.
Yeah,
So
well,
this represents a cumulative 3.5%. And then going forward for the next few years, if council is able to consider allowing us to do that, it would be the same, about between 3 and 4% annually. The first number we came back, Mr. Dobek was, and Mr. Carlisle, Dick Carlisle, the founder of our company, and myself, we met. And the first round we came through, and he made it very clear this is not going to work. So we sharpened our pencils, and I can tell you our
we're a for-profit company, obviously, but we are very keenly aware that we do public service. And our profit margin was shaved down to its absolute bare minimum, much less than if we were bidding on this work for the first time, significantly less.
Well, we certainly appreciate all you've done for us, and hopefully this fixes, past issues, we'll just say.
Well, similar to the last conversation that I heard, that we're only interested in moving forward. This is a very important partnership for our company. It employs a significant number of people, and we have a great interest in continuing this partnership in our mutual interest and ultimately in the best interest of the community and the residents.
So in 4 months, how do we look at this?
We're gonna compare revenue.
Increased revenue?
Yep, increased revenue compared to expense, and are we getting a bang for our buck?
So, and I guess the first question would be is, I'm sure that some of these building department things work in cycles. Is this a good cycle to be a measure of that? Assuming
Summer
more
to late fall.
construction and improvements during summer
Yes.
as opposed to the middle of winter time?
Yeah, middle of winter wouldn't be a good
So you're
cycle.
comfortable with that
Yeah.
time frame?
I think so, and aside from the actual rate increases, we also, Jen and I and others put our heads together and said, procedurally, what can we change to make it better? Not only for the contractual relationship, but for the residents that are the customers of the city. For instance, I think I mentioned this example when I spoke to you during the budget hearings. The rental certification process for the multifamily communities, which, it's home to a pretty significant percentage of your residents. We were doing them, it's a 3-year certification cycle, and we were doing them all the same year. So, as I'm sure the finance person had mentioned to Jen a lot, it was like a roller coaster. There'd be tons of revenue, and then it would drop off to nothing, and then it would ramp up again and drop off. What we prefer to do is, the city should control the workload. We determine who gets certified, recertified, and when that occurs, with the goal being that we equalize that workload throughout the year, each and every year, so that there's no tremendous burden all of a sudden to do them all at once, and then it drops off and, you don't need people. So we're trying to flatten that out, change those procedures along with the fee structure, so that it's a uniform workload throughout each year, year after year. And I think it would be more predictable and better for the customer, the owners and managers of those apartment communities, to know exactly what to expect and what it's going to cost them. And they can spend a lot of time preparing for it, so that they can be successful as well.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
Go
We
ahead.
also split up for like the complexes that are larger,
Uh-huh.
that will do the first half of the building, the beginning like of the cycle, and then we'll give them 4 or 5 months before we're coming back for the second half of the building, so then they have the opportunity to make all the necessary repairs and then also jump ahead, so they're not gonna get re-inspection fees.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Rita?
And then, did I see in there that we would be getting an extra day as well of service from you guys?
Right now, like, our contract's supposed to be a little less, but I have the inspector here, building inspector, 5 days a week.
Awesome.
I've already managed that one.
Nice.
He may be split on a couple of the days because he's in another city, but when he's not there, he's here with us.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. The other question, Brian?
You mentioned the word burden, and that's one of the things that we've talked in our conversations before, that Jeff has taken on a lot of responsibilities for engaging with developers and marketing the city's properties to, developers, and it takes a lot of his time. And I know Andy makes efforts, and, everybody on their own makes individual efforts. But can you tell me, I believe that the community development doesn't do those type of efforts. That's left to the city employees, well, the other, like Jeff and
Like what
Andy.
type of?
Economic development.
Economic development,
Economic development's a whole specialty in itself. We do support quite a bit. We'll get the data for folks, we'll support them. We have business owners come in all the time, we'll walk them through the process. Even potential business owners, they come in, we meet them, and we walk them through. But economic development is its own specialty in itself. A lot of it's based on real estate items like that. I mean, some of our priorities that we try to keep up with is, we've got a planning commission and a zoning board of appeals. Both of those have to be administered by our department. Both of them meet 3 times a month, sometimes planning commission twice, ZBA once. We have to do agendas, meeting minutes, call prospective applicants, things like that. So it eats up at least one person a month, or one person a week in order to keep up with that. So we do our best we can to keep up with it, but there's a whole specialty in itself about setting up events and things like that.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
they will pass me the leads. You know, if they get leads with new businesses and such, they'll pass it to me, and I can make a call, or they'll reach out to the mayor. But as you said, a lot of larger cities that have a lot of property, they have an actual economic development director. That's usually a 6-figure job, and that's a lot of travel, and that's a lot of seminars, and a lot of different shows, trade shows, and
Economic development and community development are completely different skill sets and different jobs, essentially. They're tied together very closely. The way I think of it as a layperson, because I came from the public sector before I joined this firm. So economic development is, somebody mentioned real estate, putting together the developers and the landowners and the different movers and shakers in the community, cut these deals and make these things happen. Community development is the nuts and bolts of following the ordinance, making sure it's code compliant, and getting it built to the community's planning and design standards, and then building it vertically to the construction standards, and then making sure it's maintained correctly going forward in the future. So they're 2 totally separate things. I would note, it's actually in the memorandum of understanding. This issue did come up in 2019, I believe, from a previous council. And our company did offer to reconfigure Dave's time and I think devote to, whether it was Dave or another employee, 1 day a week for economic development, and then kind of remap those other duties with maybe a community planner or someone else. And for whatever reason, there was no interest in pursuing that. But in the future, we're more than willing to discuss these types of things.
So that would fall under responsibilities or scope of a community planner? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. We do have a community planner that does work here 1 day a week. And they're paid at a much lower rate, which is passed on as a savings to the city, under Dave's supervision and mentoring.
So does that person have the abilities and the skills to work on economic development?
No, they don't do the economic development. They would pick up that slack.
But
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
they're trying to help me manage the ZBA and the planning commission and take those burdens off.
Free you
So
up.
that myself writing
So
meeting minutes and things.
The clear question would be then, not to put all that burden onto Jeff, is there
Sure.
something we as a community can do through your, consortium to provide economic development to the city of Riverview? Whether the scope would have to be determined on,
I think it's best we look at the scope, because like Mike said, or Jeff
have
said, there's
somebody,
trade
though.
shows and things like that, they can start running into 6 digits.
Do you have employees that are capable and
Yeah,
skilled in economic?
we got other employees there, as people being brought in. We got one that worked as a commercial broker for a long time.
And even if it's not our firm, there are other consulting
Yeah.
firms that do this for a living. And they're very successful at it, either full-time or part-time, or as a project-by-project basis,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good conversation to have, so that you're fully informed and are armed with the information to make the best decision on what the options are out there.
One follow-up question, then, if I might, there, is how would you gauge the success of that economic developer? Is it based, like, similar to what you're doing here with the return on investment?
For economic development, probably see what type of investment they brought in, probably gauge it to see what kind of tax base they're bringing in compared to what their salaries are. And what you're paying out, you might have to give it a couple of years to see what pans out and what doesn't.
Job creation.
Job creation's another one, workforce development's a big one. What types of jobs?
And then any economic development director will say, well, what do you have here to sell? That's the other thing.
Right.
What kind of inventory do you have to take that
We
on?
have a few properties that aren't moving,
Yeah.
at least.
But I'm not saying that's
Well,
not a good,
right.
that's nothing not to look at. I'm just saying that to get a good economic development director, you gotta kind of have the program in place where here's all the properties when you interview them and you show them and him or her.
Which is what you've been working on. I know
Yeah.
you said you're putting together binders that have the
Mhm.
wetlands, that have the appraisals in it, and the characteristics.
Absolutely.
We're also doing similar with the DCC intake forms, which we'll talk about shortly.
Yep.
So I know you're putting a lot of efforts on your plate in that too, but I think we as a community could find somebody that's professional to take that burden off of you.
Absolutely.
And do similar where we're gauging the return on our investment, because we need more revenue. I mean, otherwise, we're increasing our taxes.
Correct.
That's one thing we have to do is find more revenue.
Yep, correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, anything else?
David? Yeah, he had one.
Just super
Yep,
quick.
go ahead.
So this is essentially business as usual, same type of daily, the services that you all have provided up to this point is what we're just gonna be looking at it over the next 4 months and evaluating from there. No uptick in anything, right?
No, it should be.
In the, I guess what I'm asking, because I know the phone's gonna ring, ordinance reports to the police department now, correct?
Yep.
So that's a separate
Yes, a
thing?
separate thing.
Okay.
They're still in our office,
You
we
know
closely
it's already
align
started,
with.
That's why I.
We closely align with them, they're in our office, so we're like
And
this, we're
I
lockstep
came
with them.
in just a few weeks back, had a question, got
Yeah.
answered quickly, so. okay.
Jen can answer best how we support ordinance, because she's on the front line of that every day, but we do support ordinance
Yeah.
enforcement. It's a super important function of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just, like I said, I figured, we spoke on this before, and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, people, really, is now they're gonna be out? You know, I said, no, this is the same thing. I just
Same
wanted to
thing, no
clarify
difference.
on the record that you guys
No
are,
difference.
you're gonna come in tomorrow the same as you came in today.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Pick up the phone tomorrow.
And yeah, I have one
Thank
more
you,
question
David.
on community development.
Go ahead.
So having seen recently the survey that you provided from the planning commission that was used for the master plan,
Yeah.
what can we improve and focus on as a city to help move towards what the residents are asking for? or
I
would
think
hope for?
one of the big issues they predicated the whole master plan on was they want to see a connected trail and sidewalk system. I think it's a big one. We already got a number of sidewalks in established neighborhoods, we got some gaps in there, and I think they would like to see, at least what we heard from, we went to those business expos. Everybody'd like to somehow get connected, they can get on their bikes, they can go from 4th Street to their neighborhoods and back without having any gaps, especially if they got kids. That's one of the big things. The other one was, they got some items on trying, it was all over the map on restaurants, because then it got to the point, what type of restaurant do you like? And that was the biggest one, and that was about the properties. Again, it was the Arkema properties. We get some things repositioned. We can go, like Brian, you mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things, is get EPA to separate those 3 Arkema parcels, so
Yeah.
we can make a move on that Bryan Field. And so that we can make a move. So, but those are the biggest items. Other than that was keep the place clean, keep the community clean, so the property values stay high. They want it maintained. Some of the items, they like the school. I mean, schools were always tied in with a lot of the components, so keeping the schools strong, and keeping a good relationship with the schools was another probably big one that I remember.
What kind of feedback did you get about downtown development?
A little bit, they want, I just got more, there's more or less the types of uses they want to see in the downtown, not so much as the infrastructure goes in place. We did post questions about having a DDA or a CIA, but we didn't get much feedback on that. I know we've tried that in the past to bring something, Dean was there, we looked into that one time, there wasn't much interest in doing that. The CIA is the same as the DDA, except it's for a corridor as opposed to a larger landmass. We didn't get much feedback on that, other than there's types of businesses they'd like to see.
Yeah. I mean, I can comment that 74% of the residents that responded did want some sort of traditional downtown, as well as an increase in retail and commercial properties. And as you said, pathways,
Yeah.
we should be getting into the linked greenways hopefully before too long, after we're done with the construction on West Jefferson.
Yes.
I know you had mentioned some pathways connecting Trenton's, what's that, along the Frank Poet Drain?
Oh, the long linear park there.
Up through maybe along the golf course or landfill somewhere.
In there, could go all the way, because the other regional connectors at
Connecting to-
Southgate is off of Pennsylvania, right where, I think it's a Lutheran church property,
Yeah.
over there, and that's where the two regional connectors are.
And then also to our business district.
They all
24th
business
Street,
district,
right?
yeah.
Okay, and then that would take us back over to the Lynch Greenway along Jefferson.
Yes, correct, get them down there, and I think that's part of it.
Thank you.
Is that it?
All right.
That it?
That's it,
Thank
that's
you.
all I
Thank you.
have.
Appreciate you
Thank
guys
you.
coming out. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Mike,
much.
thanks, Jen, thanks, Dave.
I think
I will
Dave's gonna
stay.
stick around.
I'm gonna stick around for a couple items.
Okay.
Okay, 2.4, discuss submission of property intake forms for the city-owned property to the Downriver Area Brownfield Consortium. Jeff?
All right, Mayor, so I know you have a pretty in-depth knowledge of this. The DCC came up with this new group. They kind of came up with a Downriver Area Brownfield Consortium. And the idea with this was, okay, what properties are available and how do you develop them? And so I don't, Councilman Webb's on that, involved in that group, so I thought that he would kind of explain it from his standpoint. Actually, I'm the third person. It's Mayor, it's Councilman Webb, and it's myself on there. So I go when I can, but these two go more than I do, so. But we thought it was important, not that there's any kind of action needed on this, but it's to bring everyone up to speed on what's going on and what they're trying to do. So,
Go ahead, Brian. Whatever you wanna add.
give us the Cliff Note
I
version.
just wanted to thank first Andy for attending this upcoming Wednesday since I have a conflicting meeting. And exactly as you said, the DCC Brownfield and the DCC SBA requested of all the cities that are participating in that to provide them with this property intake form, which is attached, as well as with parcel information so that they can put it together when a developer approaches the DCC looking for a property with specific characteristics, industrial, et cetera, whatever location, they have these properties then available to them. So it went with Dave's effort and his group and Jeff as well. The intake forms were put together and then sent over to the DDA. So the two that were provided here were the Grange Road property as well as the Sibley property. As you may recall, the Grange Road recently went out for bid for about 6 weeks, I think. Came back with no bids. As I understand it, there's about 7 acres of wetland on that property, which is going to make it hard to market. So one, I guess, follow-up question I would have is, do we know, are those reports available to us for the wetlands so that we, as council members, are working to market that property as well as
Sure.
Dave, so we're understanding the characteristics of not only that property, but the Sibley property as well? Because obviously, that's going to be an important question is, what do we do with 7 acres of wetlands?
So, yeah, and I think I asked Dave to send them to you, Councilman Webb. I don't think I have them sent to all the council, but we can.
Okay.
There's no
Yes,
reason
please.
why
I
you
think we're
can't.
all
Yeah.
interested in marketing that property.
And so here's the thing, right? How was it done in the 90s when there was only 2 acres and now there's 7? Well, there's a different determination of wetlands now that Eagle 30
Okay.
years later is determined. And the
So
encroachment.
more stringent.
Yes, and more encroachment of water on property. That doesn't mean they're not buildable.
Right.
That just means they have to remediate 7 more acres somewhere else in Michigan. So if you get the right developer that has different property, that they can remediate the 7 acres on another piece of property or somewhere else, but it's not as easy turnkey. Now, you know, I'd love to see that develop, sell and develop right away, but I think it's gonna take some time. We gotta find the right.
Okay. So just to finish on the intake forms, really, that's it in a nutshell, is just to have that provided so that when people come, developers come into DCC, they have, a range of properties available in the different cities. So, thank you again. I saw these two, are we expanding the scope to any other properties? I know.
Yeah.
We talked about not the private properties, which aren't for sale, but if there is a private property that is listed.
We're gonna start researching those.
Okay.
And
I know
start
King
knocking them
Road
off.
in Jefferson, there's, properties that could be
Yeah.
developed if they had maybe some help
Yeah,
with marketing.
Dave
that.
could maybe get his assistant down,
They
that.
started with these, they started with
Community.
they started with these and then.
In community.
the calls.
Get the community liaison, community manager, planners person that sometimes come in. Maybe she can have that assignment to
Yeah.
start getting these done for other properties and load them in there.
Yeah, we put 'em.
So you mentioned the displacement of wetlands, just out of curiosity, if a developer were interested in the Grange Road property and didn't have the ability to adjust wetlands somewhere else, does Riverview have some wetlands that could be adjusted to?
I don't know that.
Oh, boy. Unless
Maybe
there's something
the
around the golf
Brownstown
course.
property that we bought?
Yeah, maybe the Brownstown property, or actually, we got the 113 acres we annexed just west of the, and I don't know if that, I'm guessing what an environmentalist would say or an engineer would say.
Okay, so-
Yeah.
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 I know there's plans probably for that property, but,
Yeah.
just as an example, if there's other properties.
And they can do it somewhere else in the state, not just in Riverview.
Exactly.
But I
I
was
mean,
just curious about Riverview
Yep.
itself. Do we know how many acres of the Sibley property are wetlands yet?
I don't know.
We're gonna find out Thursday.
Thursday.
I gave them a deadline Thursday morning, had to have a report on my desk.
Okay,
They were out last week walking, I know they were out there, I saw them out there walking the site.
all right, so there's progress, good. And we have an idea of what these properties appraised at, so we have
He can send those to you
a
too.
ballpark of what.
I can send you the property
So
appraisal.
somebody
Yeah, we
says-
had a company do that.
I'd like the 10 acres, but I'm not paying whatever, 200 million for it.
No, it wasn't that high. It was lower than we expected. We expected 9 and it was somewhere around 6.
It was 380.
Oh, was it 380? I thought it was closer to
380 to
6.
400, I think it turned out to be.
380,000 for 20,
That's for 9 acres.
sorry.
Yep. Mhm. But we can send it to you. There's no reason to hold that. I mean,
No, we
Dave's
sent
got
the
it.
developer,
Yeah, I
so
think the
it's all
more
sent out to
Dave
the
sends it to the
developer.
information we all
developers.
have, the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To try to help with marketing those properties.
Absolutely.
So, I'd appreciate it.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope.
All right.
Okay.
2.5, special projects.
Jennifer, you don't get here as much as you used to, so we'll let you start.
We're here.
Mhm.
We just have 2 going on right now. We're doing some soil investigation at the landfill on the north side facing the new RNG facility. We're just seeing how much soil is there that could possibly be reused. And then the second one is, I just vacated my brain. Oh yes, the clean water loan application was submitted on May 1st. It's being reviewed by Eagle, and we've had a little bit of back and forth questions that they've asked us to answer. It seems to be going favorably, so that's positive. We won't have an actual answer until September, and then the monies will be distributed in October. So there's quite a wait for that, but it does seem promising at the moment, so.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Can I ask you a question about that loan?
Go ahead.
Do you know what interest rate it will be at?
I do not, Ann had looked at that, and it's lower than the normal bank rate, but I don't know what it is.
Usually about 2.25, 2.5, if that's still the same rate.
Yep.
Next.
Oh, it is, Skirtle. He's here, sitting here.
Let Sohail stretch his legs a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'll let Sohail.
I'll make it short for him. Okay, I got 2 items tonight. Is Mine South Medical, which is the old Advantage One Credit Union. Over on King Road, they did receive conditional approval to do an expansion. It's gonna probably come close to doubling the size of that building. And the only condition they have is they have to turn a certain amount of a landscape plan for us to review. And the other ones, Areas Health did go in front of the Planning Commission earlier in June 6th, I think the date was, or not, yeah, I think it was 6th. And they went into, they're adding 24 beds to their project. They went through and met with them. They got to come back with some more information at a public hearing we're going to schedule for July 2nd.
That's within the existing structure?
There's a space in the back that's green, so it's not going to touch the parking, it's not going to touch the sidewalk. They have enough green space to put this in the middle.
Okay.
They designed it that way, right?
Yeah, they designed it that way. And so we just have to double check some of their information on open space and such.
'Cause the infrastructure's there.
Infrastructure there.
Water, sewers.
Yeah, so I was got to do like a
Electric.
detailed thing, but cursory, they should be okay.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
May I ask a question about the areas?
Go ahead.
Are they still coming for a split of the acreage along
Yeah.
4th Street?
We don't have anything formal from them yet, but it's part of this discussion with the planning commission.
Okay.
We have to make sure right now that the required open space, they aren't touching the proposed lot split area, so it causes a kind of a quagmire of who approves what first. So it's worth checking out. But yes, they're gonna be coming forward.
Okay, and is there any talk still about the split between Leo's and Burger King?
Burger King, they're still in the process. I haven't heard anything in a while. They do come in once in a while. They're trying to purchase that property from that landowner who is in New York. And I might be, they're trying to get the whole center, but again, it's all hearsay. But I know they're trying to get a certain lot split done. And we try to stay in contact. We haven't heard from them. The Wild Coney site,
Leo,
we
you
do,
mean?
the Wild Coney, not Leo, the other one.
Oh.
I'm not switching gears. I
Oh,
went from that
Denny's.
center. Let me switch
Denny's.
gears to the other, did Denny's.
Yep.
They still coming in, they're still working on plans to get a cannabis place put in there. And they just said, hold still, we're working on, drawing up plans.
Isn't it too close to Jars?
That's what I was just wondering.
No, if it's just inside there.
Mhm.
And this is from the property line to property line?
Yeah, property line fits, it just makes it.
And I thought I heard that they did not get the lot split, that Burger King was going to be cannabis.
Burger King, that's what they came in for, a cannabis place. And they're gonna pursue the cannabis, but they're trying to get the lot split purchased from that developer in New York so they can move the cannabis and build it new on that parcel. And then keep the Burger King in place.
Okay. all right.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I was at the planning commission meeting where that was approved with the contingencies that the current property owner do 50% of the improvements that the city's been after them for at the Sibley Commons. So isn't that now beyond the planning commission that they approved the split contingent upon these and it was going to go to
That
city
was a
council?
previous owner. They have to come back.
Oh, so new owners.
This is the Burger King owner wants to purchase the property and split it. This was a whole nother entity in itself.
Wouldn't the current property owner have to ask for the land split and not somebody that was interested in the property?
That's part of the negotiation. They're trying to
Okay.
purchase that land
Sorry if I'm
from
confused.
the,
I-
no, they're
From
trying to purchase the land from that person. Once they can't do anything until they purchase that property. Once they purchase it,
Then they could get.
then they can come forward. Yes, you are correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Dave, can I ask one quick question?
Mm-hmm.
The
Sure.
old Showboat property.
Yeah.
I saw it's all gated off.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Oh, yeah.
It's a wrestling match.
Okay.
That's right, yeah.
I got where the Randy's
They
from,
said-
real close.
Well, the rumor is it's the new community pool.
That's what I
It's
saw.
okay. Now, we can
Oh,
try
I
that.
heard
I'll
it's a
see.
skateboard park.
We'll run that.
Parkour
Probably the dog
course.
park, I'm assuming.
So,
So what's the status of
the
that?
status of that is an agreement with Circuit Court, Wayne County Circuit Court. He can fence off his property, provided he leaves access to both the former concessions to the east and to the Chopsticks Inn and the party store to the west. But he has to leave in there, and there was some contention over how much he had to leave, the type of fence, how it was anchored. And so we're still,
It's ugly.
So is
Yeah,
it given a
it's-
time, is it given a time frame for improving it?
we gave him, a part of our agreement was, he always has to maintain that property. Just because he put up a fence, it doesn't mean he can't doesn't have to maintain the property. He's got,
I have to use four-wheel drive to get through there.
so.
Hovercraft.
And
Oh,
so
gosh.
we're working closely with Randy's. I can't say too much about that because the thing, but we did give them a deadline of mid-November to get in front of the planning commission with active plans. If not, we're back we're going right back to court. We gave him 6 months.
Okay.
We talked to his architect, and said, you got 6 months to draw up plans and get that into us.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you.
So out of curiosity, why 6 months?
By the time the architect needs time, if he's gonna do a plan, he needs time to draw them up and get them into the form possible that the planning commission will accept it.
Okay.
That's the reasons for the architect to give him time.
Yeah, I was just curious why 6 months, that's all.
It's a reasonable timeframe.
It was reasonable for him to get a drawing put together.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, so Ohio.
Good evening, everyone. Sewer lining is in progressing very well. We can't wait till July 1st to start road sectioning and joint seating. And we are in the process of reviewing lots of DTE gas line replacement projects, so those are going to be going on very soon in the city. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
If I may clarify the fence now that you mentioned on that property, when you met with him, he's driving lots of vehicles, and vehicles that traversing that lot are causing all kind of erosion because the parking lot is such a deteriorated surface. We didn't want that to end up in the sewers into the
Okay.
storm system, so we fenced it so we can minimize the traffic going back and forth until such time that it is developed and cleaned up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Anything other council, business council wants to bring up?
Yes, Your Honor, just
Go
real
ahead.
quick. I wanted to ask Randy, since he's here and we have a chance. I sent an email about the Axe Michigan tax. Are you familiar with that? So there's a initiative to eliminate property tax in Michigan.
I've heard
It's
about
called
it.
Axe Michigan Tax, or
Yeah.
Axe MI Tax, or not Axe tax. So anyways, I had sent an email asking some questions if this is really, something that's got some legs and what the impact would be to a city like ours if that, property tax is eliminated, right?
Did you send that to me?
I did. It was just the last few days. I'll resend it just in case.
Okay.
Did anybody else get it?
I know what you're talking about, but I didn't
Is
get
it
it.
in
I know the
drafts?
subject, but I didn't see an email.
Probably in spam.
Well,
No, I check that.
I apologize.
Every
It's-
Sunday night I
it's-
check.
It's still in my draft. I apologize.
Okay.
I must have went offline or didn't have a network connection. So I'll resend it now.
historically, when it comes to tax in Michigan and other states, when they limit or reduce or get rid of a tax, they figured out another way, right? They got rid of personal property tax, so they increased, what was that, constitutional revenue or
Yeah,
whatever.
but this is a different
I know.
incentive. It's not a state idea, it's a group that
Right.
put this
Yeah.
together.
Well, if state bars into something like that, they're gonna have to make up that revenue. $5.2 million of revenue to Riverview, I think, is our taxes. Isn't it, Ann, something like that? Yeah.
Great.
So,
Right, now, go ahead.
One last thing, I attended the Preventing Avian Flu Outbreak seminar that was provided by SEMCOG, and obviously it's still very early in the game, but they do have concerns that it could be transmitted from people that are dairy farmers, which, thankfully we don't have, but also food workers that are preparing meat.
There you go.
That's uncooked, could possibly be a transmission point, so just wanted to raise that. That's it.
Thank you, Brandon. Now it's time for other business. I'm shaking heads, so I won't do the whole speech. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.